Okay, so today we're talking about bird feeders. Fall is in the air, it's time to stop feeding the birds again. And so customers come in all the time asking, what style bird feeder do I need to attract certain birds? And it's actually just the opposite. It's more of what kind of bird feeder do you need for the certain bird seed that you want to feed to attract different birds. Let's dive into it a little bit. Okay, so there's lots of things you could be feeding the birds, and every bird has its own favorite. Now, we've talked about in other videos that the most popular are black oil birds, black oil sunflower seed. So all of our bird seeds are broken up into kind of two categories. Small birds, or like a Niger seed, a tiny, tiny thistle, or a sunflower seed. And let's look at it up close. Okay, so if I want to attract birds like the finch, and some people think that the yellow finch is not around in the wintertime here in New England. It is just not yellow anymore. And so lots of customers will feed the finch all season long. And this is a tiny, tiny seed. And so when we're picking a bird feeder, you need to pick a bird feeder that has a little tiny opening that doesn't allow this seed to just pour out. So by definition, you'll see bird feeders will be labeled as thistle feeders or sunflower feeders. And that's the biggest thing. This sunflower seed here, you can see it's a much bigger seed. So on the feeders, they need a much bigger opening to allow the seed to come out. Now, most good bird seed will have a list on the back. So it'll be like black oil sunflower. Okay, that's going to attract the cardinals. I mean, you can see it has the largest selection of birds. It's going to be in the black oil. That's why it's a modest sized seed, and so it needs those bigger openings. And that is an example right here of this is what we're looking at. The perch itself, there's always some kind of perch and there's an opening. If this was a thistle feeder, it would be a little tiny slit to let the bird seed out. This one is a wide open one. So this means it's going to be able to handle some of the nuts. It's going to build a sunflower seed, but we would call it a sunflower feeder. This one is just a classic tube feeder that's in a cage. When you break it down to whether it's a sunflower feeder or a thistle feeder, a lot of it after that is cosmetics. So these cages are nice that if you have squirrels in the neighborhood, having a baffle on the top with a cage on the outside, most of your birds can still fit through here. Sometimes the occasional squirrel will still get in there and grab some seed and pull it out, but they can't chew the feeder. They can't break anything. And so any kind of feeder like this, they're not the most ornamental. But when you start getting into some of the wooden feeders or the classic copper ones, they look pretty, but they're all going to be labeled as sunflower seeders or thistle feeders. And so when you're picking your feeders, once you know whether you want a sunflower feeder or a thistle feeder, it's really what you want it to look like. So you can see right here that this is a feeder that's marketing towards the finch, and it's got these little tiny holes in here. And so you can see that thistle seed will not fall out very easy. If I filled this with an all-purpose seed like a sunflower blend, the seed would never come out of the holes. So just for comparison, again, here's a sunflower feeder, this is a thistle feeder. If I have a sunflower feeder, I can use almost any commercially available mix, even some of the woodpecker ones that have the bigger nuts and everything and berries in there. These big openings will still handle them. So when you're looking at the rest of these, it's really just a matter of how many birds do you have. If you're just looking for something for kids, there's lots of these small feeders that can do multiple types of seed. These are kind of entry level, get into it, going through. But if you're feeding birds on a regular basis and you're good following, any kind of these classic tube feeders are pretty much the most staple and basic lines. Everything else is more just decoration and what you want it to look at. So if I want to use suet ball feeders, I'm using one of these. So you kind of narrow down what you want to feed, what kind of feed you want to use, and then what do you like to look at. The biggest thing when it comes to some of the bird feeders is more of the squirrels. They are the biggest nuisance around. Even if you don't think you have a lot of squirrels around, I guarantee you do. And then once you stop feeding the birds, that's when they stop becoming a bigger problem. Now, these right here, let me swap this around again. These are our two best squirrel-proof feeders, and Squirrel Buster line. This whole line just works great. The classic ones are the Yankee flippers. These are great feeders because the fact that it comes in multiple different versions. The classic one, that's motorized. So when if you get too many birds that land on here, or if you have a squirrel that lands on here, it actually spins and sends the bird flying. Then they've got the tipper, the whipper, and the dipper. And you can see with these, they've got different platforms. It can handle light birds or just a few birds. But as soon as they get too many birds on there or the weight gets too heavy, that goes down. So these are kind of more passive. They don't have any kind of batteries in there. This is probably our classic. Only complaint I've ever had on this feeder is the customer bought it after watching this video for a long time and watched the squirrels being thrown. He came back in because he was disappointed it worked so well, the squirrel didn't come back. But so these are classic feeders, but historically, these feeders that have the trap door, so it's nice and tubular, there's nothing for the squirrel to grab onto, there's a little bit of a baffle, and then when they grab onto this perch, the weight itself closes off the ports. And so that's kind of how this whole Squirrel Buster line works on, but there's lots of other versions that have come out. So this is for the true enthusiasts that wants a quality unit that they know is going to work. A lot of these others are kind of entry level, kind of get in there and start enjoying feeding the birds. And then after you've got a good following, maybe upgrade to some of the premium built to last units. But lots of different makes and models. It really just depends on what you like to look at and how aggressive you want to keep those birds at bay. Okay, so lots of customers, it can get a little overwhelming and they start worrying about, do I need a squirrel proof feeder, but then it's getting a little expensive. But I don't necessarily, do I want it all functional where the squirrels can't get in it, but it's not the nicest looking? There's no right or wrong. Just find a bird feeder that you look at and you enjoy. And if it's a little small, you just have to fill it more often. And there's not going to be anything wrong. The birds are still going to come to it. The key is just put something out that you enjoy, that you don't mind looking at, that's not too cumbersome to fill it. Make sure, figure out what seed you want to fill first, and then match the bird feeder to make sure it's suitable for that seed. And then just have fun. Just get out there, be patient. Maybe fill your feeder halfway, just try to get a little momentum. Once the birds start coming on a regular basis, then you'll determine from there whether you have problems with the squirrels or not. Or do you need a bigger feeder because you need more capacity. There's nothing right or wrong. Just start the process, have some fun, and the birds will thank you. Take care.